Back on the podcast, happy to be joined by Dr. Alan Sills, the NFL's chief medical officer. And Dr. Sills, obviously, as we record this Tuesday night, you've had a very busy day. The Tennessee Titans and Minnesota Vikings have had busy days. This is really about the first time that after 2 pristine weeks and 1 week that there was one positive test with the Atlanta Falcons, that there seems to be a potential for something that would really alter the landscape. 3 players on the Tennessee Titans and 5 officials of the Tennessee Titans have tested positive after a Monday test. The test results came back on Tuesday. And now, as we are here Tuesday night, how does this story stand?
Well, I think as you reported, Peter, we have received those positive test results, and we've done exactly what our protocol set out to do, which is that we've done contact tracing for all those individuals. As you know, we closed the facilities for both the Titans and the Vikings today, meaning we sent everyone home, players, coaches, and staff members. We've done deep cleanings of both of those facilities. But now we have those additional tests that have been done. We've also done point of care tests on all of the close contacts that were identified. So we went through the contact tracing, we went through the additional testing, we've done the deep cleaning and the sterilization, and now we'll wait to get another round of results back tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning, to see what else we learn. So we've spent the day gathering all that data, and I might add, going over all that data with our epidemiology, our public health, our infectious disease experts, our partners at the NFL Players Association.
So the one interesting piece of news, I think, that is different than what has been reported is that all 8 test results for the Tennessee Titans, the 3 players, 5 club officials / coaches, they're not all asymptomatic. There's at least 1 player who is symptomatic and at least 1 other who's symptomatic. Does that make any difference right now in how you examine these tests?
Really doesn't make a difference, Peter, as far as our contact tracing and our testing efforts on everybody else in the team environment. Where the differences come into play is obviously the management of those people who are infected. And we do have one protocol for people who are symptomatic and another for those that are asymptomatic. So that's really the only difference. As far as isolating them away from the team, as far as testing all the close contacts, doing the tracing, doing this cleaning and the sterilization, there's really no impact on whether they are symptomatic or asymptomatic.
You know, as I look at this story right now, I think it's probably more surprising that in the first 2 weeks of this season, the 2,460 players, that none of them tested positive. Then 1 in week 3, and now apparently 3 in week 4. So what does this say about how the NFL is doing the testing, and what does it say about the response from the teams and the players?
Well, I think we've said from the start, Peter, this is going to be hard, meaning that as long as this disease is endemic in our society, we expect that we're going to have exposures. We can't avoid it. None of us can avoid it if it's endemic in our community, no matter how careful we try to be. And we've also said it's hard because it takes day after day vigilance around every aspect of our protocols, not only at the team facility, but when players, coaches, and staff are away from the team facility. So in a sense, you're right that we've said all along we expect to have positive cases because of those facts. And we've set up and designed protocols and procedures that would deal with that, because what we're obviously trying to do is to prevent any positive cases from becoming a team-wide outbreak or a league-wide outbreak. With that being said, I do want to tip my hat to the 2 teams that are involved, Tennessee and Minnesota. I think their medical staffs have done an amazing job. We've obviously been on the phone since 5 o'clock this morning working through this. And they all moved very aggressively and simply asked, what do we need to do, and took those steps. There was tremendous cooperation and collaboration, as you'd expect. But again, this anticipated that we might be in this position, and we've thought through what are the steps that we need to take. And just like any good protocol, you have to think about it and rehearse it and prepare for it. And today, that's what happened.
What would you say?
We went through the various steps and engaged with what we had planned to do.
What would you say are the chances based on your knowledge of the contact tracing that you have done, that there will be more positives with the Tennessee Titans?
Gosh, Peter, I wish I knew the answer to that. I used to say that I had a crystal ball, but I dropped it and broke it one day. So I can't look into it anymore. But I think that speculating is really not getting us anywhere. We just have to wait and lead and go where the data leads us. So we'll see what the test results show over the next several days. Obviously, as we mentioned again, we've closed that club's facility. They don't have any players, coaches, or staff in the facility or around each other. They're all isolating. And the data will reveal itself over the next several days. We'll look at that very carefully, and we'll make what is the best and the safest decision for everyone involved.
Have you, at this point, if there are no more positive tests with the Titans, have you told them or confirmed to them that they will be able to open their facility on Saturday and go back to work?
Yeah, we really haven't confirmed that, Peter, and they actually haven't asked. They've said the same thing that everyone in the equation has said, and that is, tell us what the safest thing to do is, and that's what we want to do. So we're literally taking this one day at a time, and that's all we can do at this point. And as I said, each day we'll have more data. We'll have more data on hand from the test. We'll look for any emergence of symptoms. We'll continue to process the contact tracing information. And there's one other group that we didn't mention, Peter, and that's everyone affected around game day that are not part of either team, what we call our game day assistants or GDAs. Again, we have notified all of them. We've done contact tracing for all of those individuals. So that includes people like the game officials who are on the field, the chain crew that's on the sideline, our unaffiliated neurotrauma consultants and airway doctors, and everyone who might have been on the field. And so we've gone through this same exercise that we did with the teams with all of those individuals. We've notified them as appropriate and gone through the contact tracing process. I'm happy to report that we don't have any close contacts for any of those individuals, but obviously, again, we'll continue to carefully monitor them. So there are really three different systems that are affected here between the two teams and then all those game day personnel as well.
Will those game day personnel be tested additionally this week?
Yeah, we've set that up and set in process those procedures. And so we will be testing the game officials additionally and those others, as I mentioned, who are involved with direct contact.
And the officials, the officiating crew that did that game, am I right in saying that they will be off this weekend?
Yeah, I think that's, again, a decision we'll make based on the results that we see coming down the pike. But we've prepared for that eventuality and notified a replacement crew to be available. Again, just out of an abundance of caution. We're trying to think long term here. What is the safest for everybody involved? And so we'll work through the data and the test results as they come back.
Dr. Sills, have you figured out exactly how many days that it is safe after a situation like this? Because, a lot of people are told if you come into contact with anyone who may have COVID-19, they have to quarantine for 2 weeks. And in this particular case, how is it determined how long that people have to quarantine for?
Well, I think, Peter, again, that's a comprehensive discussion that we have with our epidemiologic and our infectious disease and our population health advisors looking at the particulars of this situation. I will say that one thing that's a little different about us than that standard recommendation is that we do have daily testing. We're testing people every single day. And obviously, the general public health guidelines were not developed with that scenario in mind. So that doesn't mean we can ignore good medical principles, but we are in a little different place because we have so much information, being able not only to screen our players, coaches, and staff, but test them every single day, and also look into the strength of any signal that might be present in those tests. So it's hard for me to give you an exact answer. I would just say, again, we have to look at the test data, the symptom data, and also look at any pattern of spread or transmission, because what you're looking to see is, does there appear to be ongoing transmission within a team environment or within individuals that are in contact? And that'll have an implication, and that'll guide us for how long we think it's important for that team to remain apart.
I guess your biggest concern overall must be that, at least one of these players in this game possibly could have been positive at that time, and he could have spread it during the game. So tell me your biggest fear. Once you found out exactly what had happened, that 3 players had tested positive, what was your biggest fear and what did you look to do?
Well, I think what we looked to do was to do exactly what, as I said, we had planned for, and we simply needed to go through the steps and really focus on the communication to make sure we notified everyone as quickly as possible, and then we immediately got onto the contact tracing. I think as far as transmission during the game, this points back, Peter, to some of the things we've been saying all along. I know you've heard me say this, and many others have. Testing is not what keeps us safe. We can never let our guard down and think, well, just because everyone tested negative from a Saturday test that we're all fine on Sunday. And I think that even goes back to a recent discussion that was had about coaches and face masks and face coverings. I know a number of people raised the question, well, why is the NFL making a big deal about that? Everybody's tested and they're negative. They don't need to worry about that. And this situation points out the answer to that question is we can never rely on testing to keep us safe. What keeps us safe is physical distance and the use of face masks and face coverings and symptom reporting and hand hygiene and all those other parts of our protocol. I always say that the testing is really like our report card. It just shows us how did we do on those factors and do we have an emerging problem? But, you know, to the point of game day, this is why we can't go into game day and simply say, hey, it's business as usual. Because, again, even though everyone tested negative on Saturday, that there can be exposures. And I think that's what you've seen in this case. So hopefully that'll help us continue to spread that message. And we'll continue to do an important job in keeping everyone safe during the game environment by doing all those things that we know are really important for risk mitigation.
Are you concerned that now that the players are out of the relative cocoon of training camp and now sort of living in the real world, that this will be the first of many?
Well, I think we've said all along that we expect this to be hard and it's going to require continued and ongoing diligence, not just by players, but by coaches and staff members. And again, remember, people share households. They share households with others that are going into other environments. They share households with children that may be going to school. So there's a constant risk that's accumulated by everyone. And again, that's why we have to have protocols that tries to test and screen as frequently as we can, immediately identify someone if they are infected, get them removed from that environment, do contact tracing, and do all the things that we've talked about. So I guess to answer your question, I'd say, obviously, I, like everyone else, hope and pray we never have another positive case during the course of the season. But I think it's naive to put all our hope in that. I mean, as someone famously once said, hope's not a strategy. Right? Our strategy has to be, we expect there are going to be positive cases. What will we do to deal with those as quickly as we can? And again, try to prevent a large-scale outbreak. But I think it's extraordinarily difficult, if not almost impossible, to go through the rest of the season without having some positive cases, no matter how careful everyone tries to be. Because again, this is a disease that's endemic out in our society. In fact, we're seeing, Peter, higher rates of disease transmission and endemic. So as long as that's out there, we know that we're going to be vulnerable.
You know, we'll end with this. I know that you're not a football guy, and I know you're not the guy who makes the final decision. But the football fan will ask this question. If the Tennessee Titans can't get into their facility until the weekend, while the Pittsburgh Steelers, who they're playing, scheduled to play this weekend, have a full and normal practice week in Pittsburgh, and they go in to play the game, how could it be fair for this game to happen on Sunday? And what are the chances that this game gets moved to Monday or Tuesday out of a relative sense of fairness?
Well, I think there are a couple of things I would say to that. Thankfully, Peter, as you pointed out, that's not decisions that I'm charged with. I'm simply asked to lead the medical effort, and that is really our North Star here, which is what is the right thing to do medically. That has to be more important than any decisions, and will continue to guide us, is what decisions make us the safest, not only for each player, for each club, but for the league as a whole. So that's always going to be our number one guiding principle. I would say also, though, that the commissioner has a panel, a group of advisors that he convened to discuss these types of issues. And I'm sure that he already has. I know that he already has gotten input from that group and will continue to get input from them about, these types of issues regarding fairness and so forth. But the other thing I would say to that is we've said all along that this season is going to be about flexibility and adaptability. And we're going to have to recognize that it can't just be business as usual. We may have to make some alterations. I think also we've said that in this season, equity doesn't equal equality. meaning that everyone's not going to have an equal road. And we've seen that before. There have been times when teams have been affected by hurricanes or floods or other things that have disrupted practice schedules, and we've simply had to adjust to that. So I have confidence in everyone involved that they'll make the right decision, but I do want everyone to realize that the ultimate guide for our decision making here is going to be the health and safety of everyone involved. That's our top priority, and keeping everyone as healthy as possible is more important than anything else in this situation.
Gut feeling, if there are no further positive tests, does this game get played this weekend?
Like I said earlier, Peter, I'm not going to speculate on that. I can just tell you that each day that goes by, we're going to make the best decision we can based on the medical information that we have to try to keep everyone involved as safe as possible, because this is about a long-range view. This isn't just about one game. I feel responsible for the health and well-being of the entire league and all of our players, coaches, and staff members and their families. And so we have to take all of that into account and be driven by that more than any schedule that's in front of us.
Dr. Alan Sills, NFL Chief Medical Officer, really appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, thanks for having me, Peter.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.